look, when you're drugged up and you sustain yourself from sexual activity as a young man is completely, totally abnormal. And when this drugs are given to you, you become even more abnormal. And the shit they have done to me in Italy was like extremely, extremely, extremely nuts. It was like totally insane. That was like totally, totally, totally abnormal. And Berlusconi talked about if I like his ex-wife, now she's ex-wife, and with Borat Pahar, these people contemplated all kinds of ideas on how to get Slovenia into Italy. And one of the ideas they wanted to agree to some kind of cooperation with them was to give Slovenia into the arms of Italy. They would guide people to Italy, and they would bring Italian people here, and they would start to associate people here with them, and how this is going to be, and how this would be. And then what they would do is they would use people, like I have talked about already, to bring them close to Italian politicians, whether those who would be representative of the European Union, and they would closely work with them, be their assistants and so on, and this and that. And so, you know, they would start to blend our people, 2 million people, with, you know, with Italy. And one of them was also the idea to get me in Rome, even to become a president of the Italy, to become president of the Italy. Would you agree to that? Well, we're going to have to do something like this and something like that. Berlusconi came up with the idea that if I would lobby, campaign for the Italy and so on, Veronica Berlusconi would, when the two would divorce, she would get I don't know how much money for it. And folks, all this shit is crazy. It sounds that he will give her to me. So I would get, according to Berlusconi's logic, an old lady and a bunch of money. This is how in his head was, that's how his logic operated, if I like her. Yeah. And you got to admit, what it might sound to you, this like totally effed up, totally insane story that never ever was in the history that somebody would give alimony of 60, I don't know, million euros or dollars or whatever it is back to her ex-husband. That just didn't happen. And that shit happened. So when I did change the political pole, when I twisted, when I no longer saw Italy as some sort of friend, and Germany and so on, but rather enemy, he did his part. Very good. Now we're going to go to the neighbor here across the street. Berlusconi used gypsies as a transport between the Rome, between the Italy and Slovenia, because the gypsies have established a route between the Balkan and Italy. There is like enormous minority of gypsies in Italy. There are a few here also in the city of Novo Mesto, and they were able to connect. And as effed up as it is, Berlusconi have excellent connections, I understand, with the gypsies in Slovenia too. With the gypsy network. He's a mafioso, gangster. He used them as a transport of me. Before you know, okay, before you know, this gypsies, they had me in, I'm going to give you a account about my neighbor right here across the street. And he said, well, he said this because he wanted me to say, he wanted me to go here and say, oh my God, he did this and 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 this to you, to this, da, 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 da. And then, you know, expected me to repeat after him if something like this if I would do something like this to him, this is how they brainwash me under my MK Ultra. If I would do something like this to him, do you think not he would come the next day and shoot me? And look, they have done so many and so many things to you. And so this is the kind of shit this neighbor garbage here across the street have counted on, that I'm going to come forward and say, oh, well, you know, he did this and this and this to me, and there you go. Or we're going to write down that he is very dangerous, this neighbor, and so on. And the truth is that we have done this, and so now the best way is to just get him out of here, and so on. Okay? So he and the friend of my father, who oftentimes was used as a transport between the Germany, Austria, and Slovenia, have organized like a really, really funny party. Took me to gypsies right here. It's in this direction toward Shinterne. I'm sorry that I'm trying to Scotian area. There is also gypsy settlement, and there's another one here called Žabjak. And so this time they took me over there, and they had me over there with the gypsies, and I had no effing idea what these gypsies were doing with me, what the hell was going on. This guy just left me over there. Then they brought me here, and we got into mentality, this kind of mentality, how this is gonna be, and it's gonna all end, and I'm gonna marry with the gypsies, and I'm gonna be the F out of here, just like in that movie that you have seen. Yeah. And here, right, the neighbor here across the street, you know, he would just stay here and live basically a normal life and things like that, right? This was one of the scenarios. Then another scenario was that involved informant, police informant, undercover police officer, which unfortunately I have to say that when I arrived here to Novo Mesto, and that shit just never ever happened to me. I was from Italy with these gypsies. I was so drugged up, so messed up from these drugs. I no longer knew. I know they have done something to me sexually. It must have been done something sexually, as I have actually shown homosexual tendency in me, which was totally unheard of for the first time. And it was this police officer, this informant, had said toward gypsies, believe it or not. And this gypsy here, right here from Žabjak, appeared to be also homosexual. And this was exactly in continuation. I'm going to play you the tape. That is exactly the same gypsy have appeared. My father took me to the store, and they have created, like, simulated some sort of another threat, like hijacking threat. And you know, the more I'm trying to explain, this is pretty damn crazy. Why this video? The more the core, you know, the more the meaning of this reason is slipping away. And it's this meaning that is more important even the proofs that I will submit to you. And you're talking about video recordings, because of which my life was conditioned. I should say my sanity was conditioned for about 24 years now. And before that, 23 years, because I'm almost 47. I left at 23, and ever since, the issues that I have talked about, the threats, those issues bordered sanity. The US government, the MK Ultra consisted in a great portion of driving an individual insane, driving him on border of the sanity with issues that most of the people, that their mind would just shut off. They would not be able to even, go on with it. Listen, um, I'm not really anything special, okay? Concerning, it's how I feel about myself. I'm not really anything special in an aspect that, uh, you know, maybe that I have managed to produce this news, to go further with the news. But, definitely what makes me special, I would say, is that, that this borderline driving individual insane, it's what usually really, like I said, shuts people's mind. And in my case, it actually gave me the motivation to, to find, all kinds of alternatives and ideas behind it all, and, open me a road to basically where I want to head, direction, I would say. It's probably what makes me special. Um, Anybody, I believe, that would be subjected to MK Ultra, um, with the news, with the mainstream media news that is, that under MK Ultra's case is presented to you, what the news is going to be about, what's going to be about, they question you, they get your feedback, and then they let you in real life and they trigger that news, that memory, subconscious memory. I would say subconscious memory with real-time, let's say, news that pops up on the internet. And because, you don't have the right to work, you don't have the right even to unemployment compensation. That's in a greatest way used to destroy individual, to make his life as miserable and as hard as possible. That definitely causes tension in individual, stress. That, I would say, most often, if, the stuff, not only that I have talked about, that I'm going to talk about, is going to shock the hell out of you, would already not shut his mind off, it probably would result in some sort of violent reaction. And, talking about violent reaction, this is the stuff that I have complained already on my videos. I have talked about a lot about my parents, about my father, about my mom, but I did not have actual proofs about it. But like I have mentioned before, when they want you out of the house, when they want you out of the village, those proofs actually do find a way to somehow get you out of here. I don't know how much you're familiar with my website. Here in a Novo Mesto, state attorney, prosecutor, friend of my father, very close friend of my father, Bojan Albar, have produced stories that, fables, which he have totally misrepresented, lied about, generalized, and I don't know whose advantage. I don't really know whose advantage other than with a criminal idea to destroy me, with the lies, with the slander at the local court. And so he have presented me as an individual who is not sociable, as an individual who is dangerous to environment, dangerous, extremely dangerous to parents, therefore the people that are around me, extremely dangerous to myself, therefore that I am suicidal, dangerous. And it was used by the local court to even suggest to give me the letter, summon me to the court, give me like this physically a letter on which was written for me to order, a court order for me to meet an individual evaluator, court evaluator, psychiatrist, who had to decide, well, this is a lunacy, total lunacy, whether I did murder, whether I did cause enormous financial damage to other people, and I don't know what kind of things. Therefore, not the police that would have some kind of proofs or that would come forward with a certain accusation that I actually have done, that I actually have violated the law because of something like this, but simply a fables, basically conditioning an individual with a sanity, literally with a sanity. Can you imagine somebody accuses you of murdering people, of, I don't know, causing, I don't know what kind of harm to other people, possibly to yourself, being, I don't know how dangerous, causing financial damages, ruin to other people and stuff like this, and have a court psychiatrist evaluator decide about whether you have done the stuff like this or not, without even being accused of anything officially, without even have anybody have any proofs for anything like this. I mean, this is truly nothing more than a borderline playing with borderline sanity. I don't know how I would say to that.
Well, here it is. I just want to go briefly so somebody's not going to say again this is some kind of conspiracy theory. These are the two official letters from the state, but you can go to my website and see it. And you have here everything in Slovenian language, just a little bit magnified for Slovenian people so they can read what kind of nonsense this shit is. It wasn't a single letter that I would get like this. I got a mountain of letters like this. I got about 20 centimeters thick, if not more, mountain of papers that were delivered to me, daily to basically psychologically break me down, to inflict as much as possible psychological damage on me, to kill me, to make me eat myself, to commit suicide, to force me to kill myself, literally. And it went on like this for I don't know how many years, 5 years. More than 5 years actually, 6 years.
And so in 1998, when they brought me here first, my father had displayed, and Americans and Germans and Scandinavian neo-Nazis, his psychotic behavior. It was quite shocking to all of them. It was the type of abusive behavior that I was due to my entire life, up to age 23, when I truly disappeared from this house and this country and so on, to get as far as possible from here. And at that opportunity, the psychiatrists from United States of America, Scandinavia, Germany, and so on, they realized that if they want to make this plan, if they want this MK Ultra to go through, a thorough re-education of my parents will first be necessary. And so what they did was they started to re-educate my father. Okay? And so my father was totally re-educated. My father was mentally completely unstable. The neighbor here, wife from Dr. Kotar, Sonia Kotar, told him at that first opportunity, she warned him about his psychotic outbreaks, that there was a kid that was with me, Nathan Rust, now in Seattle area, but did attend the education in Miami. That's where I was. That's where we met. U.S. government groomed him for the government and was involved, well acquainted with psychiatry, with MK Ultra, that just a little kid like this, younger than myself, because my father had that type of attitude that, like I've stated, the neighbors were dumb, everybody was stupid. He was simply the smartest man in this world, everybody was shit. Despite the fact that guy barely have any kind of education, that guy, this individual have truly any kind of, I don't know how I would say that. He is well acquainted with things he does and stuff like that. Really well acquainted, very professional, but when it comes with that general knowledge and things like that, he could nowhere with his high school compete with with doctors and people in this field, with professional psychiatrists, psychologists, police officers, and so on. So he thought that he is going to handle them as well, with his behavior. It was not like this. They told him nicely. She told him, if you're not going to behave, he alone, this kid, he can have you disappear. And so they started to totally build different personality in my father. They might have even got him in a mental hospital during my absence here in Slovenia when I was in the US. What I'm trying to say is that when they need you to get out of here, when they want to get you out of here, despite the stuff they have knew about, what I have gone through and have even used, this type of tensions that were built in me that made me go away from here. Because when I came to the US at age 23, there was a few years that I totally disconnected my brain. I just wanted to basically forget this place as much as I can. I didn't even want to call home, to be honest. And believe me, my sister is the same. She barely comes home sometimes because she just can't see it. This is just the way it is. Okay, I'm nothing different from anybody else. This is just was extremely abusive individual that would demand and drive people totally insane. And as a result of that, when I came to the US, I have just shut my brain off. I couldn't go and work in any profession because I didn't have documentation. I didn't have not even green card or anything. And I let it go, and I let it go. I waited. I wanted to relax. I wanted to get to know myself, find out who the hell I was in this world at all, what my purpose was. I wanted to learn about me, want to know myself. This was for the first time that I was away from this meth house. And the meth house is exactly the proper term for my father, who have driven the whole family and neighbors and everybody insane in this town. This is probably the best description I can give, and this is exactly what the US government have used later on when they have brought me here, and they have used more tensions. I'm gonna say my father really did not cause me any harm during the MK Ultras. He didn't go into any of that kind of stuff. But they have used other people. They did not use my parents. They did not use, one time they did my mom and stuff like that. But when it comes to my father did not really, during MK Ultra, he did not participate in, at the end he did. Also, he did something with the Jews, he did with Jews, he warned me don't against Jews and stuff like that, and he let them hit me in the stomach like a cowards do, wanted me to understand not to talk about things like that. But other than that, my father during the MK Ultra that lasted from 98 to 2006, they lasted more than that. It started earlier, but I'm talking about overseas abductions. He didn't really cost anything that I would remember that he cost under the MK Ultra, and nor did my mom. Treated me like I'm an idiot. Yeah, my mom did that it looked later on when I returned from the US that they see me, they view me that way. It totally was, my situation was such that I was like groomed by the US government, by the neo-Nazis as somebody who just would become like a weirdo, like somebody who is not social, would become secluded, would just, would be destroyed progressively through forced unemployment. And I don't know, would become drunk, drug user, aggressive if he would get into a field of journalism and he would start to write the news, which they wanted from me. You know, in a certain way they wanted from me so they could trigger tensions which were built inside of me till I left this home. And with MK-Ultra combination, that really would, in most people, I believe it would be explosion of emotions, and probably would be a dangerous cocktail. It was a very dangerous cocktail. They have also, during MK-Ultra, they have used certain techniques to, to make parents look like not human-like, and they came up with ideas for me to talk about, to accuse Slavs, Slovenians, and so on, that they are cannibalists and stuff like this, to see them as such. So they try to create as psychotic as possible behavior and promote Nazism and stuff like this. But, as things went along, things just did not go along well for them. So the idea was to, not only the stuff that they have done to me in the US, but they wanted this shit to go beyond. They wanted me actually to really cause some kind of a harm and stuff like this. It's never happened. It never did happen. They have procrastinated, all types of scenarios, violence, regretfully I have to say so, with neighbors too. This neighbor here right across the street is a thug. And so are others here. They said that I'll never ever would be able to carry on, that I'll never ever, that at that point it's going to be already, that I'm going to be already so psychologically destroyed that I'm not going to be controllable, and all kinds of stuff like this. It never happened. It really, really never ever happened, any of it. So the stuff they knew about me was the stuff that was saved for the last. And again, I have to repeat, and when they want you out of here, when they want you out of the house, when they want you out of the country, what they do is, that's when these proofs actually are due. That's not a problem anymore for the mom to, admit all kinds of things about the father, for the father to act again in his old-fashioned ways, and so on and so on and so on. My mom even took a little extra on herself during this, since 2006, I would say. She became like extremely different from what I used to know her. Okay, when I left, before I left to the US, my mom and me were very close. My mom and me we did have arguments. She could be violent and stuff like this, had a hard time controlling herself and things, but she never ever would go and, like, try to mentally undermine you, basically, what are you going to do in this kind of situation? There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, look at you. There's nothing you can do. You don't have the proof that we did this to you. You don't have video recording. You don't have audio recording of actual abductions of MK-Ultra. And there's nobody out there that is going to come forward and witness for you. We got you. There's nothing you can do about. As well as mine, just lay back, take your medications, fucking die, basically. That's how her approach was. And then she went beyond that. She took extra. She afforded herself to mentally challenge me. That's what I'm going to play also in these videos. We did not have any type of relationship like this with my mom before I left the United States, but the stuff that you're about to hear with my father, that's something we did. That is exactly what we have had, you know. And instead of my placing my father behind the bars at age 10 for the stuff that he had done, 11 and 12 and so on and so on, I have missed the opportunity, and then I have paid the price. Then when he was 80, he threw me in a mental hospital and accused me of violence and stuff like this, which I never ever have committed. I don't have a single smallest crime record, anything on my crime record. And unlike my father, I survived under the extreme circumstances. Slept in the truck at times for 2 months, was away from home. Survived on gas, lived in the US for almost 13 years, and was in Sweden and Norway and Germany and Belgium, and traveled back and forth, life that bordered sanity, and I never have committed any offenses, any crimes, anything that would appear on a police record anywhere. I always have respected the law. My father, on the other hand, he always have violated one, but have managed to get away because I, and also my mom, you know, I was brainwashed, you know, to love my father, which all children do, and cover up for him, defend him even from the neighbors, from the people, lie about him, how good he was and this and that. And it's something that he later on have used to destroy me. Again, US government knew all along, neighbors knew all along. More important than anything here is to understand why all this, who wants this, and this I already have explained to you. This life of borderline sanity, continuation of borderline sanity for me did not stop. One of the latest in MK Ultra, in a row of the MK Ultra threats, was a threat from Angela Merkel on, actually I'm going to start with the neighbor here, with Donna Collins right here across the street, and I'm going to give you in detail. I will describe the incident. That all this is more than anything related to the Bush and Berlusconi. Bush was here at the end of the MK Ultra, became extremely motivated in this case, more than at the beginning stages. At the end of this MK Ultra case, he became extremely motivated one, because I have under MK Ultra not displayed any weaknesses. This was one of the things that was alarming signal for all the psychiatrists and psychologists who were involved in this case. The second thing was things turned against them. I no longer wanted to play this MK Ultra. My health deteriorated severely due to the amount of this MK Ultras, due to you know, erasing post MK Ultras with electroshocks, with zip, with injections and stuff like this, brought me, as I have mentioned, into nocturnal seizures that could result in Parkinson, Alzheimer, and so on, many other diseases. They were almost kind of a force to stop, and I'm not going to forget that. I was pretty much told that if I'm not going to go home in 2006, they will just totally burn me. They will destroy me. They will totally kill me. So it was probably more than what anybody ever have endured. I don't think that anybody had gone through since 95, 2006, 11 years of MK Ultra under this kind of circumstances. There might be people who have gone through more than what I did, but based on the amount of time that I was exposed to MK Ultra and what they have further anticipated from me, and they basically cut me from employment market and unemployment compensation. Nobody ever came ever close to any of this stuff. This stuff was really designed to create something very, very bad here. Yeah, Bush became excessively interested in this case. At the end of MK Ultra, he became obsessed with idea that that perhaps just maybe I would be able to disclose everything, absolutely the whole thing about what took place, and have begun to contemplate on something totally different, begun to contemplate on stuff I also have mentioned, on how to get me his daughter as a wife. And the same thing John McCain did. Approach toward this type of relationship, however, was very shocking. Here I'm going to give you the account on how he approached towards my case, on how he, what type of, how he creates twist of events that can result in an individual to act, to comply with this type of terrorism. George W. Bush is a terrorist more than anything else. He fits description of the terrorist. He's just on the side of the story that is well-standing, U.S. But other than that, the man is no different from Al-Qaeda. He's no different from any other terrorists that are out there. Account about the neighbor here, Collins, Donna Collins. Not yet. Sia got here, Bush got here in this town, they were here. And what they wanted to do is, they wanted to make me feel like, look, already in the US, they made me feel like I'm not even European, like I'm not even white, like I'm a, a trash, a no good, good for nothing, completely no good. And so now they came up in this miserable life in the US, which I had nothing. Now you had the CIA here bringing me, associated me with local gypsies here in Novo Mesto, threatening me that I would have to marry a local gypsy here in Novo Mesto if you agree. Do you agree? Do you agree? Under MK Ultra, that's exactly how MK Ultra is. I'm going to give you exact account. You don't even know what the F is all about, but that does not really matter because the scenario is made in such a way to somehow trigger your curiosity, your attention. And of course, under MK Ultra, with knife under your throat, you agree to everything. So of course you agree, you don't know about anything yet. The next thing you see, you find yourself in Italy. Berlusconi was pushing and was motivated, Matteo Renzi and other fascists. I didn't have an idea how they're going to divide Slovenia and so on, and Italians were very, very interested in this case. They wanted to get some kind of sympathy from me that you like the Italy, but the Italy is good and this and that. Berlusconi promised, have questioned me about his wife. If I like his wife, Veronica Berlusconi, whatever. At that time, I think it was, according to her age, I don't know, I think it was 55 or something like that, and I think it is now, I don't know, 67 or whatever. Look, when you're drugged up, and you sustain yourself from sexual activity as a young man is completely, totally abnormal. And when these drugs are given to you, you become even more abnormal. And the shit they have done to me in Italy was like extremely, extremely, extremely nuts. It was like totally insane. That was like totally, totally, totally abnormal. And Berlusconi talked about if I like his ex-wife, now she's ex-wife, and with Borat Pahar, these people contemplated all kinds of ideas on how to get Slovenia into Italy. And one of the ideas they wanted to agree to some kind of cooperation with them was to give Slovenia into the arms of Italy. They would guide people to Italy, and they would bring Italian people here, and they would start to associate people here with them, and how this is going to be, and how this would be. And what they would do is they would use people, like I have talked about already, to bring them close to Italian politicians, one of those who would be representative of the European Union, and they would closely work with them, be their assistants and so on, and this and that. And so, you know, they would start to blend our people, 2 million people, with, you know, with Italy. And one of them was also the idea to get me in Rome, even to become a president of the Italy, to become president of the Italy. Would you agree to that? Well, we're going to have to do something like this and something like that.
Today, important is November the 28th of 2017. As I record this, maybe I should say re-record, because sometimes I'm not happy with what I record. It's got to make sense to the people to understand what's happening. This is important, and in a little bit you're gonna see why. Priti Patel, Netanyahu, all you gotta do is enter this in a search engine and you get UK minister, okay, she was a UK minister, resigned over secret Israeli trip. Well, the truth is that Priti Patel did not resign because of the secret Israeli trip. Not at all. Priti Patel was in bed, and I mean really in bed, with Benjamin Netanyahu, like in a real sense of the word, for already many, I don't know, maybe 2 decades ahead. Since she started her political career, she was actually selected by Benjamin Netanyahu due to her qualities for the position in British government. And her quality is that she somewhat resembles what, you know, could be a Jewish female. Arab, you know, Jewish mixture, something like this. And was used for more than just to be a, you know, a politician on a stage. She was used to, the news I will talk to you about should matter to you because it was not posted anywhere. Again, they cite here that she resigned because of the secret Israeli trip. It's a lie. It's a total lie. I already have partially given you a clue. Why did she resign? She resigned because Benjamin Netanyahu plans on expanding Israel, Israeli expansion throughout the Mideast. And this is well coordinated with British, French, and Germans, neo-Nazis, colonizers, who desperately need Israel. Because when we talk about the World War II, we never ever talk about what was done to the Russia. We never ever talk about what was done to Poland, what was done to Yugoslavia, what was done to other Eastern European countries, Belarus. All we talk about is so-called Holocaust. So we have totally forgotten about 40 million Slavs that were murdered in the World War II by German neo-Nazis, and the Eastern Europe, which was burned to the ground, because we only talk about the Holocaust. And Holocaust presents Jews only. Okay, so now the 4 million Jews have replaced basically 80 million people that were murdered during the World War II. And it's exactly Benjamin Netanyahu that rushes us to move forward with neo-Nazism and colonialism, basically extermination of systematic destruction, either with, systematic extermination of races, or simply with absorption of Russia, which is the biggest one. The biggest idea is to absorb Russia, get Russia, grab Russia by the throat, and once you have Russia, then you complete your domination of the world. You exterminate everything else. This is actually why Priti Patel have resigned, really, not over the Israeli trip. Priti Patel knows Benjamin Netanyahu for already I don't know how long. The people that I met, I'm going to go to the Boris, that's ex-London mayor. Let's just go to the news here. Israeli PM spotting leaving exclusive Mayfair nightclub, because this news was released on November the 7th and so on, simultaneously with the other one and so on, because they're all in bed with one another. You go to the Bush, you go to this French, Buckingham Palace, Germany, and so on. They all support one another in the grab, with the idea, with the appetites to just to go on with it. He wanted me, Benjamin Netanyahu wanted me to release this news. He wanted me 3 weeks earlier to go like, whoa, this is a Priti Patel. And well, the story is that at least this is what they have done to me. I don't know if they have gone as far as my really having sexual intercourse with Priti Patel, but they have suggested me that I did, and that I have even produced son and stuff like this. I think it was a bullshit. I've just seen her son was born in 2008 in August, and this was done to me in 2006. So this isn't really possible. That's one thing. Because I have, I mentioned that she was used for many other things, that she was selected by Benjamin Netanyahu. That's right. Priti Patel is resembling somewhat, looks like a Jewish female. And because I have totally rejected, I did not agree with the facial, with the Jewish facial, with the genetics, I could not relate myself to a Jewish females. They would test me. Netanyahu was completely obsessed in getting me to Israel. He was obsessed in getting me to Israel, as I have already explained, because they're trying to build all kinds of communities in Israel. And it's really, really bad for you, and it's really, really good for them. They don't have any Slovenian people in Israel that I would know of, other than ambassador and maybe a few other people, Slovenian Jews and so on. But the idea behind this crap is that if they would assemble the variety of communities in Israel, then they would get the support from all these communities in their conquest against Arabs and Africa and so on, or whatever criminality they would perform. This is one of the things. So what happens is that if you do assimilate yourself in an Israeli community, it is you who becomes part of this ugly, dirty criminal cabala. That's one thing. You get a bad karma. And your country gets sucked up into toilet of the toilet. So it's not so good for you, but it really is good for Israel. You would be used basically to exterminate yourself according to this type of recipe. And this is what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing in Brazil. Even he got Indian people and even Chinese he got. I don't think he's going to make it though. And so one of the females they came up with, because I have rejected and rejected and rejected, Theresa May is such a rapist, ugly woman, nasty, violent woman in reality when you get to know her. And so is Boris, and so is David Cameron. They are thugs, criminals. Came up with the idea to show me Priti Patel, Netanyahu's secret weapon. And, you know, I was sexually starved. In Miami, I didn't have anything. On the drugs. And, yeah, I said yes, this and that. And, well, this would be used, this news would be used parallel to, let's say, this news here. I don't know if you know this guy, but this is, his name is Canavero, who claims to have conducted first human head transplant. Of course, he's a joker. It's just as this smile here depicts him as a little bit crazy, and he likes to be seen as such. But he's not that crazy. He's not that crazy, and he's got a very strong ties with Theresa May. In fact, Theresa May have severely threatened me if I would take the course against Putin, if I would take the course against fascism, Nazism, Buckingham Palace and their plans to take over Slovenia and stuff like this. And for something else that I'm going to talk about. First thing they came up with were the threats. They experienced the fear because at this point of MK Ultra I became totally rejective towards Italy and all of them. And it was very unpleasant, and for Germans and Italians to learn that, you know, I didn't want to have anything to do with them and stuff like this. So they started to get really, really thuggish and threatened. And one of the threats they came up with was to actually subject me to a head transplant. Really, really disgusting gesture to an individual.
In the end,
this individual here, I don't know who he is, but he would later on visit Miami
after
and intimidate me in my store with his presence. He would come, sit, look for merchandise sometimes, and so on, and would make me, you know, facial remarks and stuff like this to intimidate, to harass. Folks, the stuff I was subjected to is totally unprecedented and totally unacceptable for the normal human being. The stuff I was subjected to, I'm going to give you an idea, should have a severe consequences for these people, but it doesn't, and it never might have, because of the Vladimir Putin. And I told you that Vladimir Putin is a neo-Nazi thug. He will pull Russia into a Nazism, which is going to end in a total defeat and disaster of the Russian and other Slavic people. Slovenia is going to be the first one sacrificed, and after Slovenia it's going to be a systematic takedown of other countries as well. You just don't defend your land like this. And you know, just you know, already a gesture, such gestures from Putin, you know, that he will go and do something like this, you know, for me are totally unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable. Any kind of play joke like this, you don't joke like that. You know, when in Miami, when in the U.S., they couldn't stand my jokes. They couldn't stand me smiling, laughing, being happy about. They, however, are doing the shit like this. For the shit like this, KGB should really take care of Putin. And they really should do that before it's going to get too late. This is not funny stuff.
After several human experiments, the first full rehearsal has taken place in China at the hands of the team led by Xiaoping Len.
The individual is, how can I say, he's not so crazy. He's not as crazy as he pretends to be. We did have a talk under the MK Ultra. We had a talk, and so I did evaluated him. He's not so insane. You have and no wonder you have a Russian, Valery Spiridonov, involved in this case here, and he have used this Russian poor patient, poor individual, you know, to gesture me that they're going to perform a head transplant. They're going to remove my head and placed on my body instead head of a Russian guy, Valery Spiridonov, because the idea of this professor, Italian professor Canavero, he would like to give some kind of a sense of loyalty to the Putin. He would like Putin to see as, you know, the thing is that there, you know, the Putin and, you know, others that I have met from the Russian delegation, they were so naive. It was like almost to the children you would talk about. And then on the other hand, you had people who are trained actors, people who are trained liars, used to totally cloud people's eyes. I remember Sebastian Kurz. You know, Sebastian Kurz was, when he was with me, he was a rough thug, is what it was. Violent, rough thug. This is how we met. But once he got to know the Russian side, if the Russians were present, he was as gentle as you possibly only can imagine. This is how it was. And so you have the whole, you have such a twisted people here, and on the other side, totally naive people that are, you know, they even doubt their own capabilities, undermine probably even their own security and stuff like this. That is just, it's just really a good news for America, for Great Britain, and so on. Even though it might not look like, but it is. Putin is a bad news for the Russians. For us, he is a great news for the Great Britain. He is a great news for America. He's an excellent news for Germany, France, and more than anybody, Italy, fascist Italy. And so what I was going to do is, I was going to mention to you this here. Maybe interesting is only that also to mention that this individual, this doctor, it talks quite foolish. He is suggesting that, you know, that number one, there was a successful transplant of the human head, however, on a cadaver, on a dead corpse. Now, I don't know how that can be possibly successful. That's number one. And I deem it's a great probability that individual died. Actually, it might have been already performed on a live individual. How would you or I or anybody know anyways what the F was really going on and what the F is going on behind the doors? I was threatened with this shit already in 2005. That's one thing. And look at this here. Look what he's talking about. Another thing was surprising, I'm not going to waste time, was when he suggested with a 90% certainty it will be successful.
Valery Spiridonov is on a mission. The 30-year-old Russian who has a degenerate...
Okay, this is it. So just so you hear that he is a Russian. With 90% that it will be a successful head transplant, in fact, is what this individual from Italy claims. Well, he claims that with 90% certainty, according to him, something will happen that only God so far was capable to perform, and what never ever have happened before, which is pretty damn nuts, insane, bizarre. I don't know how else I
Well,
would...
exactly as for every other organ transplant. There are people who would just